like to call the meeting to order, and I'd like to ask Mr. Hughes to render an invocation, and if Mr. Ives will lead the group in the pledge.
Let's take just a moment. Father, we come together again, and we'd like to thank you for all the things that you have done for us, all the blessings you have stored upon us. We ask that you go with us through this meeting to help us make the best decisions we can. We ask a special blessing on the board and the staff of the Solid Waste Authority. These and all other blessings I ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand and face the flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We need an approval, motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive public input regarding the fiscal year 2019 draft budget, and I will now open the floor for public input. Each person has approximately 5 minutes. When you come up, if you'll state your name for the record.
I'm Anita Moran. I'm representing the Legal Women Voters of Oregon. Okay. First, I want to commend the Solid Waste Authority for their efforts on reducing waste in our county. The facilities are well managed, conveniently located, spaced nicely throughout the county, and open almost every day. Everything to accommodate the resident of Horry County. Thank you, Solid Waste Authority. But what about our landfill? Of course, our population continues to increase. Not only residents, but tourists. The Myrtle Beach Chamber of Commerce is aiming for 200 million tourists by 2020. New developments are being built all over the county. This tremendous growth is going to limit the length of time the landfill will be functional. We must start now to recycle, reduce, and reuse as much of the waste products as we can. Standing up with and for Mother Nature, I have been a recycler for decades. Putting newspapers in the old brown shopping bags was no problem. Carting the papers across town was no problem. Separating glass from cans didn't take any heavy concentration. And with a 5-cent deposit on bottles and cans, we had a real incentive to return those items to the store. What is the problem? Not everyone recycles to the fullest extent. My weekly schedule includes 2 or 3 trips to the convenience center where I see the shape of tin cans being exposed in the plastic garbage bags waiting to be crushed by the compactor. Why aren't these being recycled? I asked an attendant why the cans weren't called out of the garbage, and he said it was policy to accept what the residents brought in without saying a word. At the rate we are going, the landfill will reach capacity long before it had been expected. Then what will we do? There's another problem. Plastics. I'll bet all of us have seen a placker. How many of these little gadgets used to remove plaque from teeth have you seen on the sidewalks, parking lots, etc.? You say, it's only a little piece of plastic. But can you imagine how many are disposed of each day? The plastic bag ban that so many Horry County residents would like to see implemented is another major problem in the environment. If only one bag was given to a tourist for a purchase with the Chamber of Commerce goal of 200 million tourists per year, can you imagine how many plastic bags would be flying around Horry County, getting snagged on trees, sailing off to the rivers and oceans, ultimately ending in the water and causing the death of fish and other sea creatures as they ingest this plastic waste. On the other hand, it has been established that the plastic bags cause operating problems to the machines at the landfill. This costs money. What options do we have? We need to make changes that would allow our landfill to remain viable for the longest period of time. We must make changes that require cans be removed from the crusher compactor. We get the delegation to pass a law requiring deposits on bottles and cans. We exchange paper bags for ones of plastic, educate the population on the importance of recycling, reusing, and reducing. Thank you.
Thank you. Lance?
Madam Chair, I'd just like one clarification. That goal is 20 million visitors, not 200 million. 20 million. Yes, ma'am.
But we don't want 200 million, do we?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak?
Hey, Sam.
Good afternoon. Grace Gifford with the Chirping Bird Society. We are very proud that the Solid Waste Authority has been so awesome with the education of our young people and our grown people. We hope that this can continue. That it is essential to fund this. It is, even though it's a major part of your budget, it is essential to the future of Horry County. We're also so proud that y'all provided a resolution to the Senate subcommittee regarding House Bill 3529. We've discussed it, but we're really proud of Mount Pleasant, Isle of Palms, Folly Beach, Surfside for being bold, taking a step out. We know that a lot of other municipalities and townships are hanging back. They're waiting for that municipal association to take a step, but every day more stuff is getting put in the landfill unnecessarily. So one of the things the Chirping Birds does is to recognize the positives that are in the community. So what we're seeing is sort of like a slow motion upwelling of more and more restaurants going for lower intensity waste. So one of these recently was fortunate to go down to Captain Buck's Port, and they've decided to do straws by choice. So you've all been in restaurants where the first thing the waitress does is welcome you with a straw on the table. It's totally unnecessary. I'm a retired speech pathologist, and you can share this with your constituents, that once a child reaches the age of 2.5, most of them have adequate musculature to grip the side of a vessel. And when you go to a bar and you see people drinking wine and beer, they're not using straws. Isn't it amazing that they can drink in an inebriated condition with no straw, but when they get to the restaurant, they expect that plastic lid with a straw? So this is learned behavior, and we can unlearn it. So we're very proud of Captain Buck's Port and also Sea Captain's House at the beach. They've taken on the compostable takeout boxes, and we're seeing a lot of that, so very pleased about that. There's one thing I wanted to mention about that bill. There's talk about the patchwork problem. Well, there is not really a patchwork problem. That's the right of local municipalities and townships to do what they feel is best for them. So they also have that right with speed limits. And when I drive to Columbia, I experience the variety of interpretations of what's best for the community as I go from 35 in Aner to 45 to 50 to 65, and so on. The other thing I wanted to mention about that bill is that when we go from place to place, we realize that the taxes on what we buy will be different. That's a reality. That's why I don't shop in Myrtle Beach too much. I try to keep my dollars over here in Conway, no offense, but it's a little bit cheaper to buy my groceries over here, and over time, that'll make a difference for me. The Chirping Bird Society showed Plastic Ocean in Surfside. There was a lot of enthusiasm, and after a certain number of months, there was the passage of the ordinance. We followed that up with screenings of the movie Bagot. Bagot is a little bit more upbeat and goes into the science a little bit more, is less shock value. And right now we have 2 screenings left, one at Chapin Library and one at Surfside Beach Library. And we are starting an initiative called Strand Strawless Summer. This is a nationwide thing that people want to get rid of the plastic straws, and basically we're asking restaurants to just go with straw choice. We have handouts for the restaurants and also some buttons for the wait staff. They say, we only serve straws on request, ask me why, one less straw program. So this is really easy for restaurants to do, and anything we can do to keep all that plastic out of the landfill is a benefit. I wanted to mention about opportunistic waste. I'm really concerned about garbage in my home. I've worked very hard to get as low as I can with the throwing out stuff, and every time I have to put a large amount in my convenience center, I feel like I've failed. But there's a lot of things that have a secondary lid. So things like nuts, there's a plastic lid with an inner lid. And a sour cream, there's a plastic lid with an inner lid. And the instant coffee, it's really not necessary to double lid products if they're properly packaged. So at my house, we love Marmite. Y'all been to Australia or England? They love Marmite too. So this jar of Marmite has a seal, which is a piece of tape. It's not a whole lot of garbage. But when you open that up, there's nothing but Marmite in there. There's no second lid. This is Vegemite. It's basically the same product. But it has a secondary ring, which is not really necessary. But when you take the lid off, there's Marmite in there, no secondary lid. But this is unnecessary. We don't need to have, it all started with Tylenol. And, Tylenol was one event. So we're micromanaging that particular kind of waste. So just very, the last thing I just wanted to mention was that in my opinion as a taxpayer, my waste and recycling bill is very, very low. I went back and looked back to 2014 how much money I'd been billed for the convenience center and all the work that you do in the schools and everything. And it was extremely minimal. It was not even $2.50 each time. So I think that is a minuscule amount. I think people that are moving in here need to pay their fair share. This is just going to get explosively worse as we have the development that's predicted for Horry County. So we have good value for the taxes that we pay, and I know that will continue because y'all have worked so hard to get to that point. But I don't feel that the tourist industry and the real estate industry are pulling their weight. They are leaning on folks like me, been here 37 years, to get rid of the garbage. So we just need to think about some changes there. So good waste management is a common good, and I so much appreciate everything that you do in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gifford. I noticed some other people that came in. If there's anyone else from the public that would like to speak.
I'm Elizabeth Weems, League of Women Voters.
You need to use your mic, please.
How's this? That's great. Okay. I'm Elizabeth Weems, League of Women Voters, and we work really hard on educating people about plastic and waste. What we're working really hard on right now is voter registration. We want to catch the wave of young people. They are concerned about the plastic in the ocean. They're concerned about how much garbage there is. We need a whole new revamp of how we look at packaging and go, I think that the 5 cent refund when you take your bottles back, we need to kind of backtrack and do some of that. Out in my community where I live, which is way out in Cedar Creek, northwest corner of Horry County, the people out there are used to dumping their garbage. It's gotten better. They used to just come and dump tons of it on our land, but we kept after them, and now they don't dump as much. And the recycle centers help a lot, too, because they will take it down the road a piece, most of them. But if they have bottles or beer cans or a whiskey bottle they finished with, they like to toss it out on the dirt road where I live, and it goes in the ditch. So I spend time picking it up, and I was just telling Bo the other day that the idea I came up with, which I haven't tried yet, is to put a basketball hook on a tree trunk right in the bend of the road where they usually toss them, and say, bet you can't make the net or something like that. And maybe it would all go into the can, and then we could more easily, get them disposed of. I thank you for all the good work you're doing. I'm really proud of what y'all have done while you've been on board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak?
They maybe not go in the net, but it'll all be in one
Right.
area.
Easier to pick up, right? Yeah.
One area to
Yeah.
pick up.
It'll also get them to slow down.
Well, I would like to say, I do appreciate everyone from the public being here. We certainly don't know what you want or suggestions unless you come and talk with us about that, and it seems y'all are very educated on the subject and do a lot of volunteer work as well. I would like to say, you hit on one of the topics that's kind of a pet peeve of mine, and that is packaging. The packaging that is made that no one can recycle, or the extra added layer of packaging that is put in our boxes or our bottles or whatever. And in my opinion, that's going to be one of the next big efforts, is to work with the packaging companies to see that they understand we need a lot of their packaging to be recyclable, not something that has to be taken and brought here and put in this landfill. I was looking at Waste Today, and that's a magazine that we get, and I get it on the internet, and they've just said this morning that China is announcing that their import ban on an additional 32 scrap materials by the end of 2019. And what that means for us and for the public is to understand that China is kind of the largest country that takes what we send out in plastics and other products, scrap materials. By the end of 2019, that's just next year, there's going to be actually 32 more items that they will not allow to be shipped over there. They will not be buying it, and they will not just allow us to give it to them. The Solid Waste Association of North America, SWANA, who does a lot of our conventions and lets us know what's going on and works within the industry, has just announced that it is committing to a renewed focus on improving recycling practices and reducing generation of single-use plastics. The people in the industry that actually help us understand it and help us work with it, the last few conventions they have been discussing this, and I think because of what China has just said, they're going to start focusing on the fact that anything that is single-use, we really do not want to be in the waste stream at all, that the people that are making these need to manufacture it so it can be multiple use and that it can be recycled by us today. And I think that's going to be one of the most important things to focus on in the future. I had given some of you that had been here a handout to let you know what we do every month, who we talk to, the school children that come, how much money we're spending on education, and what we intend in the future. So I do want you to know that we are continuously exploring new opportunities to increase our recycling content and the products that can be. Our board and our staff continuously work toward creative solutions to reducing and processing the plastic waste that we get. We've also been, and we need to continue these discussions with our local, our state officials. Public awareness and participation is helpful in these conversations. It is hard for us to do anything unless the public is aware and educated and willing to work on their own. And I just want you to know I really appreciate your efforts. Does any of the other board members have anything they'd like to say?
If I might, Madam Chairman, this has been Earth Week, and there's been quite a bit of activity in the area. We had 6 different cleanups this past weekend, and just a phenomenal amount of people turning up and helping clean up their community, and it's been outstanding. We had one fair where I was informing students that you know, your mother has the wrong utensils stored in the chest in their dining room. The silver will oxidize and disappear within 100 years. But the plastic spoon you used this morning and threw away is going to be around for 450 years. So tell your mother to put the plastic in the chest, and it's time to throw the silver away. Thank you.
Okay. Does any other board members or any of our staff have any comments?
Ms. Creech, on the handout that you handed out on page 3, at the bottom of the page, with the recycling rates, the recycling rate that we have here is 30.28%. Now, the state's goal by the year 2020 is 40%. And unless the state steps up, the county steps up with mandates, there ain't no way in the world we're going to hit 40% by 2020. That's not too long down the road. And till the state recognizes the tourist population and what they bring to our area, Charleston, Greenville, that's going to be another challenge for us. But our management plan, we're going to try to push for more mandates. And as Ms. Chirpin Bird says, the retirees are moving down. They are demanding recycling. I mean, we've all worked the Myrtle Beach Home Show and just get beat to death because why don't you make people recycle? We enforce the rules, but we don't set the rules. And I think county council could step up and mandate recycling at the convenience centers, and that'd take the place of Charleston stuff when Charleston pulls out at the MRF. Just that one one situation with and people are willing to do it. We debated that fact when we set up the first 7, 8 recycling centers. Do we mandate it or do we encourage it? And council was under such fire for pulling 550 green boxes from all around the county. Every country store had one. Every Crossroads had one. Everybody wanted one, but they didn't want it across from their house. But council took the position, let's encourage. Then we had people come down to see how we set our centers up. And Lancaster County went back, set theirs up, and it was mandated. So I think the people here will take it and will do it.
We seem to have great luck educating children. Some of us went to the schools where now the schools are taking the wet waste, their food out, and we're actually composting and taking it out, which is a great thing for a lot of reasons. We don't lose other recyclables by that wet waste as well as taking that out. But if you'd seen the 4th graders, were happy. They would pick up their plates. They knew right where to put the food. They knew where to put the plate. And it looked like a little army of children that were laughing and talking and helping each other and doing.
And they were
things.
training the substitute teachers.
And they were actually training the substitute teachers that were there with them that didn't know what they were doing. And there was no animosity, no problem, that they weren't frustrated, they enjoyed it, they went right through that. But we're having a pretty hard time educating adults, which is sad to say, but that's it. I do believe that in the future, we're going to have mandates to actually continue what we do, to have any life to this landfill, especially with what China is doing. So we agree with you, or I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I just hope you keep coming back and talking with us if you have any other points after seeing the handouts. If you will email the board or the staff or both and give us any other suggestions and things that you want us to do. And I highly recommend that you interact with our local officials and our state officials on what they're choosing to do with plastics and the bottle bills and the different things, because we have the capability and to be more efficient doing it if we can get it in the right receptacle to recycle it. So I appreciate everyone coming, unless anyone else has anything from the public they'd like to say.
Two more things if I might. One is another thing that I learned this weekend. There was a woman whose baby was 3 years old, and she did not realize the whole time she was diapering her child that there was an alternative to Pampers. And when she learned that they lasted 450 years, she could not believe it, and no one had told her that cotton was an alternative. Anyway, we've got an uphill battle, but to your statistics, Danny, that we're hardly getting to 40% recyclables, 73% of our waste is recyclable. That's the goal we should have in mind. And that's what, if we could keep it dry, we could recycle 73% of it.
We could,
So
if we could actually. do
Part
it.
of it is that some of it gets wet. We need to keep that out. Thank
When I was in Pennsylvania visiting my mother for the last 2 weeks, they had a show. It was like 2020, but it was a small country where the oceans was bringing to the mouth of their rivers was bringing in plastic. And it actually, the rivers that these people were using for drinking water, you could see the plastics moving, but it was this high above the water, you couldn't see the water. And the little government had maybe 20 people out there with rakes that could reach out as far as they could and pull this plastic back out of the river. And they had several old pieces of equipment. They couldn't afford Caterpillar. But they were working to try to get enough of this plastic out of their river to actually have drinking water. And they were saying that at the rate the people they had put to do that, it would take 10 years to get enough plastic out of that river for it to be usable again. And if foreign countries are not going to take these plastics anymore, which they've banned a lot of them, in years to come, that may be where we are if we don't do something about the containers and things that people sell and what we can actually do with them. So do appreciate you coming. And if we can hear from you again, we would be more than happy to do that. Any other board members that have any comments? Okay. If there's no further business to come before the board during the public hearing, we will accept the motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion, a second. Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The meeting has been adjourned. Thank you.